The Sega CD is a console with a limited library, and this already limited library has an even more limited amount of RPGs. The Sega CD saw limited releases between 1991 and 1996, and let me tell you, those limited releases did not include a lot of RPGs, but the RPGs it did have were pretty good. The RPG and RPG adjacent games on the Sega CD are incredibly varied for how few of them there are. We're going to be looking at 14 games today. Some of them are definitely RPGs, some are kinda RPGs, and some are definitely not RPGs, but RPG fans would probably still enjoy them. Also of note, being a system from the early 90s, a lot of these games are very anime. I'm really looking forward to this blast from the past, as I was one of those kids who was cursed enough to have a Sega CD. Getting a Sega CD and Shining Force CD one year for Christmas is definitely my own personal N64 kid moment. After playing Shining Force and Shining Force 2 for about 1 million hours each, I was ready for a new adventure. So here we go! For RPG Fortress, I'm Richard. Where did my chibi avatar go? Oh no. And this is, hey, the Sega CD has some really great RPGs you should play. So we're going to start off talking about a couple of games that aren't RPGs at all, but are kinda RPG adjacent. Well, one of them is RPG adjacent. One's not even remotely an RPG, and one's a fighting game in a bad disguise. While not being RPGs, these are some interesting titles that everyone should have a look at, if only to be aware that they exist. So our first game is a game that I did a full review of a few months back. It's Popful Mail. Magical fantasy adventure Popful Mail is an action-adventure, side-scrolling platformer from those lovable scamps at Falcom. This game was released in the early 90s for many systems including the PC 8801 and the SNES, but it's the Sega CD version that we got in the West. Popful Mail is a great action-adventure hack-and-slash with lots to do. You have 3 party members that you can swap out on the fly. Although they don't play that differently, it's nice to be able to switch out to a full life bar when one of your characters is about to die. There's also lots of weapons, armor, and items to collect to make the quest a little bit more manageable. While not an RPG per se, Popful Mail will scratch that action RPG itch if you want something similar to Zelda 2 or Ys 3. Revengers of Vengeance is one of the weirdest games on this list, and I can't believe it's not more popular. Not popular because it's a hidden gem, because it's not, it's kind of f***ed up, but popular because it's so fringe. It's basically a fighting game with some RPG elements. Sounds like something that would be released on Steam in 2023 by a one-man team, but this is for real an actual Sega CD game. Revengers of Vengeance, or as it's known in Japan, the much less ridiculous sounding Battle Fantasy, is a decidedly not great fighting game. It's slow, poorly balanced, and just unfun to play. You do have some fun characters like Robot Ninja, Harpy Lady, and Big Rhino Dude, but I always choose knockoff Deedlit. Revengers has a lot of RPG-style mechanics like a town to explore, shops to visit, and a level-up system, but unfortunately, none of this really adds anything truly exciting to the bland gameplay. I absolutely cannot recommend this one. Based off the popular cyberpunk TTRPG, the Sega CD version of Shadowrun has nothing to do with the SNES or Genesis games that bear the same title. The all-original Sega CD version of Shadowrun is a full-on text adventure with occasional dice rolls to add a bit of needed gameplay to the journey. I'll be honest, I have no idea how good this game is. I played this one for 2 hours and did not get much out of it other than, this might be okay if there was an English patch, and holy cow, Google Lens still sucks. At least the atmosphere is pretty cyberpunk. I can't argue with the designs at all. Snatcher is a game that just about everyone has heard of. It's probably the Sega CD's most cherished title. It's an early Hideo Kojima game that borrows a lot from Terminator and Blade Runner, so of course that sounds good. The title is often sought out as the killer app for the Sega CD, and I can't really argue with that. It's a hell of a solid title. The game is another text adventure, but this one has a lot more going for it than the aforementioned Shadowrun. There's a lot more to interact with, there are more people to talk to, and there's even a few, kinda crappy to be honest, shooting sections. But you don't play Snatcher for the pew-pew sections, you play it for the dark atmosphere, the mysterious plot, and the terrifying sci-fi robots that are going to steal your skin. Snatcher deserves all the praise it gets. Definitely worth a play, even if you're not a Kojima fan. Next up, I want to talk briefly about a couple of titles that never got English releases and likewise don't have any fan patches. Just a couple of interesting looking titles lost to time. Isle Lord sounds like it's about a guy who rules the deep freeze section of your local Walmart, but it has nothing to do with supermarkets. Probably. Isle Lord is our first of two untranslated, RPGs developed by Wolf Team. Yay! Wolf Team would eventually go on to create Tales of Fantasia for the SNES. Yes, they are the OG Tales crew. Look, I have no idea how this game is played or what it's about. I'm just trying to pad out a couple of paragraphs so you guys can at least look at what the game looks like. It looks weird. Isle Lord's perspective looks like it was supposed to be a first-person game, but at the last minute, someone said, let's chuck in some sprites. I can't tell you if Isle Lord is worth slogging through something like Google Lens, but the game lives rent-free in the part of my brain where old untranslated games float around. Arcus 1, 2, 3 is just that. It's a collection of the 3 Arcus games. Never heard of Arcus? Well, me neither until I wrote this script. These were some apparently fairly well-enjoyed dungeon crawlers on old, semi-obscure Japanese PCs in the late 80s. And yes, you are not wrong, I also don't know much about this title. I wasn't able to find a menu to choose which title I wanted to play, so I assume you need to finish the games in order. This title was also brought to us by Wolf Team, and I really wish that this one was localized. I love a good dungeon crawler, and these Arcus games seem to be pretty hot. I mean, it's 1992 and this game has an on-screen automapper. How wild is that? The game seems to be very wizardry inspired. You begin in town with a menu of places that you can visit like the guild, weapon shop, inn, etc. You eventually make it to the dungeon and start crawling. I really wish I could play more of this. Our final Japanese-only RPG is Seirei Shinseki Fei Area. What a title, what a game. Maybe. I played almost an hour of this game and I can say that it seems okay. Reminds me a bit of Vi. Graphics are unremarkable for the most part, but battle stills are pretty fantastic. Music is pretty decent, just a bog standard RPG to be honest. There's a princess that has been kidnapped and you have to rescue her. It's a familiar start, but what I wasn't expecting was the random battle RNG to be this sadistic. Sometimes you will fight a battle, walk one step, and get into another fight. One time I left town and without even walking a single step, I was somehow engaged by a random battle. How does that happen? I can't really say much else about Seirei Shinseki due to it being locked to Japanese, but it doesn't appear that we're missing too much. And now, the main event, what you all have been waiting for. I'm Richard for RPG Fortress, and this is our top 10 Sega CD RPGs. Wait, there's only 6 RPGs that were actually translated? Wow. Ahem. I'm Richard for RPG Fortress, and this is our top 6 Sega CD RPGs. Number 6. Starting off our list is a one-of-a-kind port of Eye of the Beholder. One of SSI's Gold Box games, Eye of the Beholder for PC is an incredible and genre-defining dungeon crawler. The game has been ported several times throughout the years, with ports finding their way to the SNES and the GBA, but the Sega CD version is the only version with an incredible and one-of-a-kind original soundtrack by Yuzo Koshiro. The story of Eye of the Beholder is simple but just enough to hook you. There is a menacing evil underneath the town of Waterdeep, and you have answered the call to venture deep underground to vanquish the evil. After you enter the sewers to start your quest, a cave-in seals the entrance, and you are not just forced to finish the quest, but to get the fuck out of the sewers. Gameplay in Eye of the Beholder is great, but it's hindered by the Sega CD. The PC version of the game is very much an arrow keys and mouse kind of game. Use the arrow keys to walk around, use your mouse to interact with the environment and attack, real easy stuff. But with the Sega CD, you are forced to use a controller, but the mouse and keyboard controls remain. The D-pad is not for walking. You have to use the D-pad to move the mouse cursor around the screen and choose on-screen arrows to move. It's bad. Terrible controls aside, this game is still pretty decent. The graphics are nice and crisp, the best looking out of all the ports, and the soundtrack is, of course, incredible. Number 5. I recently did a full review of Vi, and it's a bit of a mess. A bog-standard RPG with familiar tropes and dialogue and gameplay grievously altered by the villains at Working Designs. Vi is not terrible, but it's also not incredible. It belongs at the bottom of a list. The story of Vi is pretty fun. Ancient, sentient alien armor crash lands on a medieval world, and the evil empire gets their hands on it. They then reverse engineer the technology to skyrocket industry and begin a march to take over the world. So the game ends up with both swords and sorcery and sci-fi, something that I always love. The gameplay is basic, but it's engaging enough. You walk around, kill some goblins, go to a town, buy new gear, walk around some more, kill stronger goblins, go to another town and buy new gear, rinse and repeat. The graphics are fine and the music is incredible. It all somehow seems to work. There's even pirates. It's a veritable grab bag of tropes, but it all works. The only real downside is that Working Designs left their stank on the translation, and the gameplay improvements are some of the most egregious they have ever made. Healing potions are fucked, experience is fucked, gold is fucked. Rest in piss, Working Designs. Number 4. Dark Wizard time, baby! Dark Wizard is an incredibly hardcore tactics RPG developed by Sega exclusively for the Sega CD. I have a real old video dedicated to this game, but I really need to do a full-on deep dive soon because there is just so much to see and do in this game. The story of Dark Wizard is a bit cliche, but who you choose as your main character will make things a little bit more interesting. There is an evil wizard trying to resurrect an ancient evil, yada yada. He's also waged war on the continent, and it's up to you to stop him, yada yada. Who are you? You are one of 4 very different player characters. Prince Armor is a valiant fighter out to reclaim the kingdom in the name of his father. The horse-riding knight Robin, crowned ruler by the king on his deathbed. The sorceress Crystal, who starts with some incredibly powerful spells. And Eamon, a f***ing vampire. Dark Wizard has some of the best looking cinematics for the entire Sega CD's library. The game also features some great character designs, although they are very early 90s, so that might not be your thing. This 1-2 punch is a visual delight. Yes, the map sprites are very plain and generic, but everything else looks really good. The game has some deep and complex gameplay with loads of characters to recruit, monsters to summon, and maps to complete. As you proceed, you will find powerful gear to increase your strength, and you'll even be able to promote your units. Did I mention the game has a hex map? I love a good hex map, and Dark Wizard doesn't disappoint. I highly recommend this game for all tactics heads out there. Number 3. Lunar, the Silver Star is a wonderful and charming RPG. It's a heartwarming tale with some charismatic characters and a well-realized world. Lunar has fun gameplay, a captivating story, and is interesting from start to finish. The game has been remade a number of times over the years, but there is a certain magic to the Sega CD version that makes it a title that you really need to get your hands on. You start the game as Alex, a young man in a rural town town who dreams of one day becoming a Dragon Master like his hero Dine. The Dragon Master is responsible for protecting the goddess of Lunar, Althena. The role brings with it splendor and gravitas. On his quest, Alex will meet magicians, dragons, beastmen, and a vile tribe of beasts from another world. And all of these characters' locations in the backstory are very well written, even with working design stank all over it. Gameplay is that very familiar turn-based RPG combat, but there's just enough originality to make it shine. Unlike a lot of other games from the era, your characters don't just stand still and wait to attack. The game features a movement system in combat, and if you can't reach an enemy, you will simply walk as far as you can and lose your action. So make sure the enemy is close enough to attack. If not, maybe pop an herb or cast a spell until they stalk closer. This is a really simple addition that makes the game a lot more tactical. Lunar is a king and deserves a play. Number 2, Shining Force CD is a hell of a game. It takes the Game Gear only Shining Force Gaiden and Shining Force Gaiden 2, The Sword of Hyja, and rebuilds them in the style of Shining Force 2. What you get are enhanced ports with upgraded graphics, upgraded music, and 2 additional quests after you finish both games. Book 1 is the never-before-released in the West Shining Force Gaiden, a tale of a new Shining Force banding together some 20-ish years after the events of the first game. The now Queen of Guardiana, Henri, has been poisoned and put into eternal sleep by the dark wizards of the foreign land named Cyprus for some reason. You are the swordsman Nick, and you team up with several young Guardiana warriors to form the new Shining Force to save the Queen. Book 2 is Shining Force Gaiden 2, The Sword of Hyja, a direct continuation of Shining Force Gaiden, where you play the Shining Force of Cyprus on a quest to rescue the Prince of Cyprus. You will see a lot of crossover of characters and locales between these 2 books. Book 3 is an all-new story made just for the Sega CD. You'll find the Shining Force from Book 1 and Shining Force from Book 2 teaming up to fight a new menace, the Witch Dava. Being able to choose your favorite characters from both forces to combine into one mega force is a hell of a good time. This new book also has some very imaginative and tough fights, like fighting a shadow version of your own team. Book 4 is a single battle that pits you against all of the bosses of the 3 previous books. It is very tough. Shining Force CD is how you properly remaster a game. Keep the spirit of the original, enhance the presentation, and add some solid extra content. Just show respect to the property. This game is pure love. Number 1, Lunar Eternal Blue. The sequel to the Silver Star and the best RPG on the Sega CD, along with one of the most captivating experiences you will ever have in the RPG genre. Lunar 2 shares a lot of DNA from the first game, but every single aspect has been cranked to full blast. Eternal Blue takes place 1,000 years after Silver Star, where the tale of Alex has fallen into legend. You now play as Hero, a treasure hunter who meets a woman named Lucia who comes from the desolate and frozen Blue Star. A terrible evil is being summoned to Lunar, and the man to summon him is a familiar face. The story, characters, and world are all incredibly well realized. The series is only 2 games deep at this stage, but it feels like this game is working off of a War and Peace sized narrative. Themes of estrangement and isolation, characters torn down and rebuilt, and a life and death narrative that truly feels massive will have you engaged from start to finish. Combat is amazingly tight, the graphics are beautifully colorful, and the music, at least for me, will make you openly weep at how gorgeous it is. Towns are huge and bustling with lots to see and do, including lots to find and many NPCs to engage with. Dungeons are loaded down with incredible sights and terrifying monsters to fight. Every minute of this game is a joy. Lunar 2 should be required playing for every RPG fan. It's the best of the best on the Sega CD. The Sega CD's life was short, its library small, its lineup of RPGs even smaller. But man, the games that are there are eclectic and exciting. From Eye of the Beholder's dungeon crawling to Shining Force's tactical combat, there is so much varied gameplay. From Vi's futuristic villains to Lunar's primordial evils, the stories are unique. The Sega CD did not set the world on fire. In fact, you could say it barely caused a spark back in the early to mid-90s. After all, this was the age of Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, and Secret of Mana. Those of us who were hungry for RPGs had a wide menu to choose from. But for those of us who deviated from the standard path, we had wonderful games to play. It was nice to see Sega finally show some love for the Sega CD by including some Sega CD games in their last iteration of the Genesis Classic. It was great to see them finally shine a light on some truly forgotten games that a lot more people should know about. I'm really glad that some of these games are being introduced to a new generation who miss them. And that is the big Sega CD video. Thank you for watching, everybody. I hope a few of these games sparked your interest. If any of these games looked interesting and you gave them a play, please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear some of your opinions on this weird collection of games. Now, if you want to help the channel, please do one, some, all, or none of the following. Seriously, just watching the video is good enough for me. Thank you so much. You can like, subscribe, ring the bell, share, leave a comment, check out our Discord, check out our Patreon, buy a shirt, buy an album, send a super thanks, clear your cache, delete your cookies, unfragment your drive, back up your data, maybe back it up twice, and just take care of your dumb computers. Yes, I'm still salty, I lost all my stuff. Big crying face emoji. Anyways, for RPG Fortress, I'm Richard. Thank you for watching, and do not forget to hug a cat. Goodbye.